This is Arise America.
Before the vote, lawmakers heard from the families of some victims as well as survivors.
He shot my friend that was next to me, and I thought he was going to come back to the room, so I grabbed the blood and put it all over me. And
what did you do then when you put the blood on yourself?
Just stay quiet, and then I got my teacher's phone and called 911.
I told her we loved her and we would pick her up after school. I can still see her walking with us toward the exit. In the reel that keeps scrolling across my memories, she turns her head and smiles back at us to acknowledge my promise. And then we left. I left my daughter at that school, and that decision will haunt me for the rest of my life.
But what I did find was something no prayer will ever relieve. 2 children whose bodies had been pulverized by bullets fired at them, decapitated, whose flesh had been ripped apart, that the only clue as their identities was a blood-splattered cartoon clothes still clinging to them.
If after hearing from me and the other people testifying here today does not move you to act on gun laws, I invite you to my home to help me clean Zaire's wounds so that you may see up close the damage that has been caused to my son and to my community.
Well, for more on this, let's cross now to New York, where we're joined by Rise international correspondent Faith Orr. Faith, good to see you. I mean, it sounds good. The bill has passed the House, but it's still got the hurdle that's the Senate. I mean, what are the chances of it passing there?
Almost none, Dan. The chances of it becoming law, pretty much zero, and that's because although the Senate is equally split along party lines, for bills to get past the Senate, they need 60 senators to vote for them. So Democrats would need to get a number of Republicans on their side to try and get this bill passed. Senators know that's not going to happen. So instead of trying to push this bill that the House has passed, they are instead focusing on improving mental health programs, bolstering school security, and enhancing background checks. But what this bill does achieve is that it does force a vote so that it will show voters exactly where all of their senators stand on the issues. And of course, that's important because there is the upcoming November election. Mass shootings, as we know, rarely lead to political action, but the Uvalde shooting has revived efforts in a way that we haven't really seen for a while. Even actor, Matthew McConaughey, he was at the podium in the White House, he calling for age limits to be raised, more background checks, and importantly, a cooling off period. So for instance, if you were to buy a weapon, you wouldn't actually be able to take possession of it for perhaps a couple of weeks. And that's because of the past couple of mass shootings that we've seen. There has been the purchase of the weapon, and then within the couple of days, they've carried out the shooting. But the House has also passed a red flag bill just a few hours ago, where police would have the power to seek the court's authority to remove weapons from people who are a danger to themselves or others. But this too unlikely to pass the Senate.
Now, what negotiations are we likely to see that are sort of currently underway in the Senate?
So the Senate is trying to find common ground. As I said, 10 Republicans would need to switch to the Democrat side of thinking in order to get any bills passed. We know that nearly a dozen Democrat and Republican senators met privately on Wednesday in the hope of finding some sort of way forward, some sort of compromise. But those who were in attendance said that more conversations are needed about a plan that's expected to have modest proposals. Now, just to put this into context, of the people who were in that meeting, the 6 Republicans, so 5 of them aren't facing re-election until 2026, and the other one is retiring in January. And that just gives you an idea of how difficult it is for Republicans to support this, how much of a threat they think it'll be for them in state primaries, for instance. So none of the people in attendance are running for the presidential ticket, for the Republican ticket. And I think that does speak volumes to how difficult it is, how much of a challenge Republicans have within their own party, even if it's what voters want. So even, things like raising the age limit, Senate is so split on that. So Republicans say that, you shouldn't have to raise the age limit from 18 to 21 for buying, for instance, an AR-15. And that's because 18-year-olds can join the army, fight and die for their country. And Democrats say, well, that may be all well, but they can't buy a beer, so why should they be able to buy an assault weapon? So even things that a lot of people might consider to be quite simple changes are very, very difficult. In terms of how the House of Representatives have reacted to this, we heard from Nancy Pelosi, and she said that the House will consider any gun bill that is passed by the Senate if it's life-saving and can make a difference, but she says they won't stand for any of the Republican subterfuge.
I understand there's been a development in the Buffalo case. One of the survivors has started action against the shooter's parents. Can you tell us more?
Yes, exactly. So it's one of the employees who survived the shooting at Tops Supermarket in Buffalo, seeking to question the parents of Peyton Gendron. That he was, of course, the 18-year-old gunman. Now, the questioning would take place under oath, and that is with a view to then launching some lawsuits, filing some lawsuits against the parents. The action in the state Supreme Court is asking Paul and Pamela Gendron to provide their depositions by July 29th. It's also asking for evidence to be preserved. Now, this action is being taken by Zaire Goodman, who is one of 3 survivors. We actually heard from Zaire's mother. She was one of the people who testified to Congress, and she invited lawmakers into her home to tend to clean Zaire's wounds so that they could see for themselves the damage that these weapons do to a human body. But the district attorney on this case has said that Peyton Gendron appears criminally liable, appears to be the only one responsible, and he is not seeking charges on anyone else. But attorneys for the victims' families, they are considering action against social media platforms, gun manufacturer, and anyone else that they think bears responsibility. Now, this latest filing, it accuses the parents of Peyton Gendron of ignoring warning signs and being willfully blind to their son's propensity for vicious conduct. The parents themselves, they haven't commented about any of this, but we do know that Peyton Gendron wrote in an online diary that neither his parents nor his brothers were aware of what he was planning to do, but that he was worried that they might find out.
We'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for your analysis this evening. Faith Orr, Arise international correspondent, coming to you from New York.
This is Arise America.